I want to thank all of you for joining us from our office here at TBARTA and places across Tampa Bay. Welcome to Work From Home Past the Pandemic. Just a couple of housekeeping matters before we start. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box and don't wait till the end of the presentation. Type those questions as they come to you. We'll reserve time at the end of the presentation to take your questions. Joining me today is Terry Bowers. She's our account manager working over in Pinellas and Pasco counties. Welcome, Terry. And Keisha Lindo is also an account manager working over in Hillsborough, Hernando, and Citrus counties. She has a huge territory. And we'll have our information at the end of this presentation. Feel free to reach out to any three of us, and we're happy to work with you. If you have questions about teleworking, or if you have any questions at all about any of the commuter services that we offer, like van pool, carpool, bicycling, in addition to work from home, please feel free to reach out to this. In this presentation, we're going to cover a couple of topics. First, we're really going to touch on the current state of work from home and the pandemic. We're going to then talk a little bit about some of the perceptions and misconceptions of work from home and ways of changing those misconceptions really by staying productive. Next, we're going to encourage all of you to create an account on Commute Tampa Bay. There's a lot of great incentives. And remember that working from home is really kind of a type of commute. You can record that information on Commute Tampa Bay and you can be rewarded for doing that. There's over 4,000 different discount coupons available, or you can enter into a drawing for gift cards. And I just want to make it clear that you can actually record your work from home activity. And then we'll take some time at the end to answer some of your questions. But before we do that, we're going to do a little plug for Best Workplace for Commuters and promote the Telework certificate. It's really a level beyond what this presentation is, and we want to encourage everybody participating in this event that they know about it and that they're signing up for it. I want to kind of clarify a few things before we proceed into the first part of this presentation. You're going to hear some overlapping terminology. You're going to hear work from home, telework, distance work, remote work, and all of those really mean the same thing, at least for the purposes of this presentation. I personally like work from home. It really signifies not jumping into a car to get to work. And unlike telework or remote work, where you can kind of imagine that extreme example of like a road warrior typing on their computer or making phone calls from the airport before they jump into an airplane and start doing the same thing. Work from home means exactly that. It's working from home. Plus, it's becoming kind of common in our language. I think most people understand work from home and what that is. Currently, I just want to touch on the pre-pandemic and the post, or not the post-pandemic, but the pandemic itself, and the changes that we've seen with work from home. In 2019, the ACS, the American Community Survey, conducted a survey and touched on Florida. And in one of the sections of the ACS, they asked where folks work, how they get to work, how much time it takes to get to work, and what times they leave from home and depart from work. The ACS helps federal, state, and local governments understand commuting patterns, which are crucial to planning and for making improvements to road and our highway infrastructure, but also help with developing transportation plans and services for local communities. In the state of Florida, 7% of workers reported that they worked from home. Now, keep in mind that the ACS asks individuals how they get to work. In the spring of 2020, the Census Bureau set out to collect additional information specifically related to the coronavirus and the effects on work patterns in what's called a pulse survey. The survey asked households, and keep in mind it's households and not individuals, whether some adult in the household substituted some or all of their typical in-person work for telework because of the coronavirus pandemic. 30% answered yes. At least one person in the household substituted some or all of their typical work for telework. The nature of the question really kind of makes me wonder, what the actual percentage is. The likelihood that some percentage of these households in the survey had multiple adults who switched to work from home would seem to me to be relatively high. What that percentage is, we don't know, but it's likely higher than 30%. Nevertheless, it really signifies a massive shift in behavior. So you're probably asking, why is Commute Tampa Bay interested in talking to folks about work from home? And the answer is really simple. Work from home helps to reduce traffic congestion. Those who can work from home for days at a time without going back to the office not only help to reduce traffic congestion, but also help to reduce auto emissions. Now, that's really why Commute Tampa Bay is interested in addressing this problem or issue and concerned with what's going to happen after the pandemic. So to kind of get this started, I want to ask Terry to speak a little bit about some of these misconceptions and perceptions related around telework or work from home.
Thank you, Ken. Can you move the slide for me?
Did it move for you?
No.
It should be moved. Oh, good Lord.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
There it is.
sorry about that.
That's okay. That's all right. So what I'll be doing is addressing perceptions and misperceptions of working from home. And what I'm going to do is kind of read 4 of the biggest perceptions and misperceptions. And then I'm going to give you suggestions on maybe how you could overcome those if someone were to present you with this. So the first one is it's difficult to engage with team members. My suggestion for that is to share your schedule with your team members so that they know when you're available and when you're not. That way it's easier for them to connect with you. And the next one would be remote workers are not productive. We all know if we're working from home that that's not true, but studies have shown that they've done a lot of studies on this, and that's shown that we're actually more productive working from home. And their thought basis is that maybe the lack of distractions, that when you're at home, you're not in the office setting and the phone's not ringing and people are not walking in, to interrupt you, to tell you something. So it's not as many people around. The main key to working from home on this is what I would suggest is that you make sure that everyone in your household knows when you're working. That way you're going to get that privacy that you need during those times to do your job. And then the third one, it's confined to only a few jobs. Well, that's kind of true, but it's also a lot of jobs can we can do partly from home. As Ken was saying, you know, even if you're working only a day or two a week at home, you're still considered a work from home employee. So that's something that, you know, maybe you do need to go in the office for a couple of days, but a lot of jobs we can do at home. So that's something to keep in mind. Forbes is predicting that by the year of 2025, that 70% of our jobs will be remote work or working from home. So that's a big number, 70% by the year of 2025. That's huge. So the last one, if your manager can't see you, you're probably surfing Facebook, Amazon, or watching Netflix in your PJs. This one I found hilarious, but anyway, the best way to prevent anyone from thinking that, including your manager, is to stay structured during the day. And by that, you know, make a daily to-do list. That's the number one thing. If you get anything out of what I'm going to say today, that's what I would want you to know is if you do a daily to-do list and try to stick to that list, you'll be successful at home. Ken, can you? Oh, thank you. Okay, the next slide is staying productive at home, which is what we were just talking about. But studies show if you stay focused for 20 to 30 minutes at a time, you will accomplish more work. This might be easier to accomplish at home due to office distractions. So my tips for this is when you're working from home, make sure you get up early. You know, if you've got a meeting at 9 o'clock and it takes you an hour to get ready, make sure you get up at 7:15 to allow that time for yourself to be ready for your meeting. And so besides that, I'm back to making a daily to-do list. I hope that everyone will jot this down, make your list every day, not weekly, but daily, and try to stick to that list. And designate your own workspace in the house. This is very important as well. We want to make that space comfortable. Because some days you may not be sitting at that space all day, just like at your job, but some days you're going to be sitting there for hours upon hours, and you need a comfortable chair, comfortable desk, and your computer at the right angle, and those sort of things. So just make sure that your designated workspace is good for you. Hopefully this information helped you out if you're working from home. And if you have any questions about anything like this, please reach out to us. Thank you.
So just one quick question. Did you know that when you work from home, you can enter to, if you record your trips on Commute Tampa Bay, you can get some great prizes, great discount coupons, and enter to win $25 gift cards. I just kind of want to show you a really cute little video that was put together by Shift Tampa Bay, and I'm hoping that this video works. I know her name is Mercy, a student at USF, and hopefully we can take a look at this, but she does a great job demonstrating all the great coupons, discount coupons, and drawings that you can enter. So Mercy, please take it away.
Every time the beat drop. I just let it dance every time the beat. A little white shifted, like 8 if I can. Every time the beat stop. Ooh, all the leg. Every time the beat.
That's great. See if I can advance to the next slide. There we go. Keisha, why don't you take it away and talk a little bit about how to register on Commute Tampa Bay?
Thanks, Ken. So as Ken said, Commute Tampa Bay at TBARTA provides employers with resources to set up effective work-at-home programs. Our goal really is to reduce traffic congestion in the most sustainable way. And one of those ways is working from home. That definitely accomplishes that goal. We want to reward people for working from home. So as Ken mentioned, Employees can earn reward points to be used as gift cards, discounts at restaurants, and at retail stores. Signing up is free and it's easy. You just go to our website. You'll access the link on our website and register and start recording your trips. We actually assign higher points for remote working because we want to keep that traffic off the road during those peak hours. So you can register from the website. You can also download the app if you have an Android device or an Apple device, and now it becomes easy and mobile for you. Next slide. So we wanted to also talk about what to expect during telework. What would be the human resources perspective? Okay, so the employer's responsibility is we want to make sure that the employee has proper equipment and technology at home to get the job done. If we do not provide the equipment and the right technology, we could be setting up the employee for failure. We want to also provide data protection. Depending on what you are doing at home, there are many employees that have client information. You may have companies, confidential information. Employers want to make sure that we are setting up some form of data protection to protect the company while that employee is at home. While other people are walking by in the employee's work office, we want to secure that information. Also, we find that employees working from home tend to work more hours because instead of driving, they're using those hours to work, whether it's in the evenings or maybe they don't have a regular 8 to 5. So we find that many employees are working late hours because the computer is easily accessible. So we tend to go over 40 hours. So employers need to put into place what the work hours are for the employees. And if it is a 40-hour work week, they need to be paying the employees according to the federal and state labor laws. And the state labor laws vary depending on the state that you're in. Well, what happens if you're injured on the job while working from home? That is a tough question. You're thinking that is the employee's space. So if they're injured, they should be responsible for that. Well, we want to consider OSHA guidelines. OSHA has everything outlined in their guidelines for that work from home worker as it relates to injuries and workers' compensation. At the same time, you want to make sure that you're securing a plan. Employers want to write a policy to put in place for all of the employees to have access to. We want to come up with some kind of safety guidelines, and that needs to be in some form of a work document or a webinar where all the employees are able to attend. If it is in a Word document, employees should be signing off on that just to ensure that they are aware of what the safety guidelines are. And that definitely needs to be in your work from home policy. Well, what does HR want to see from an employee working from home? Well, they want to see that the employee is working within the office hours, as mentioned earlier, because they want to pay them according to what to how many hours they're working. So working within the office hours, if it's a 9 to 6 or an 8 to 5, or working within deadlines. So there are some companies that may have more projects than hours, and they want to find a way to communicate that deadline for the employees to reach. Want to communicate on a regular basis for accountability. There's studies that show that employees working from home can get lonely. So if they don't have regular communication with their coworkers, or they don't have regular communications with their managers, then it does become lonely and it could affect their mental aspect. So we want to reach out to them regularly, not just for accountability, but just to check on them, see how they're doing. And we want to always check on productivity. So we're working from home. We're not able to see what they're doing on a regular basis by walking over to their desk or in their office. So you do want to check to see how that project is going, what their expectations are. You want to make sure they're following it, make sure that they're producing in that workspace from home. And I want to go back to the OSHA guidelines. In reading up on the OSHA guidelines, OSHA want to make sure that you are compliant, but they don't necessarily come out to check your workspace to make sure that it's safe and you're compliant. But some industries do, like if you are doing some kind of manufacturing from home, that's something that OSHA would need to come out and make sure that the workspace is compliant. So it's so many things that in the OSHA guidelines that we want to read up on before we write our policy and stay up to date with that. Okay, so I will pass it over to Ken so he can continue to talk about best workplace.
Yeah, there's a great question too that's in the Q&A section. We're going to get to that. Terry and Keisha, if you haven't had a chance, read through that question. But after I'll return to the question after I do a little pitch for best workplace for commuters and the Telework certificate. So this Telework certificate is really a 5-part certification series, and it's really designed to help managers and teleworkers stand out. The certification shows that you're organized, you're accomplishing more, you're working more efficiently, you're better able to communicate with folks, and you perform as a team contributor. All of these things, I think, really kind of come back to some of what Sarah Hendricks has asked in her question. And I'll, again, come back to the question shortly. What the managers of the Telework certificate get out of this is they really learn how to work with a distributed team. And I think that's really important, that management needs to understand how the work from home process works and how to better manage that particular situation. So the certification process allows them to develop those skills, that knowledge. It provides them with tools that they need and resources to handle that. And more importantly, it really offers some best practices for managing a team that's working from home. With that, I'd really like to come back to Sarah's question. She writes that a woman was fired for asking to work from home to care for her family during the pandemic. While our commuter assistance program industry does not condone trying to work and provide childcare simultaneously, the pandemic has forced some families to seek this arrangement. How would you counsel this and other family caregivers to convince their employers to allow them to telework and also temporarily juggle work, childcare, multitasking? And, I think one of the key issues for me is just kind of comes back to communications. That's not going to be the be all and end all, but you really do need to have a process in place where if you're not able to do that 9 to 5 hours, that you're switching over so that your work becomes more goal oriented. You have particular deadlines that you need to meet, which would allow flexibility. And again, this idea of having kind of a flexible schedule where you're able to, if you're homeschooling your child, like many folks have across the country, because the pandemic has sort of forced parents to provide, essentially telework services for their children to attend school. You really need time to manage that as well. And switching that conversation from like an hourly to a more goal-oriented, deadline-oriented work schedule, I think goes a long ways to alleviating the worries that a manager has. Now, not all managers are going to be amenable to this, and I think it's kind of a slow process. Terry, Keisha, do you want to chime in? Do you have thoughts about this? Terry, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Most popular thing said today, right? You're muted. No, I think that a lot of companies do have employees that are not flexible. You know, that they're not, you know, I would be interested to know what type of work this employee did to make any type of accusation as to how they should have handled it. But, you know, there are some offices that you have to be able to answer the phone at all times and there can't be distractions. So you know, you know, I wouldn't know how that employee should address their manager as far as a plan of how to overcome that. But I would want to know more about what type of job the employee did.
Yeah, I would say, you know, open communication with that employer. And you can't go to the employer without having a plan. Like if you have a plan before you go and you weigh your options, that this is, you know, this is my responsibility at work. We want to make a plan to show him that this can happen while you're at home. It also goes back to the equipment and technology. Are you already equipped with the proper equipment and technology to be able to work at home? Will the employer need to spend more money to have you work from home? Or do you already have that? For example, when we worked in the office, we always had a laptop. So we already had the proper equipment that we can transfer to the home office. So definitely open communication, come up with a plan, and you know, then come up with that expectation.
Yeah, you know, Sarah has written that the woman was working in a dental office as a office assistant manager. And so that individual is working with sensitive records. There is a way to manage those records remotely and still be like HIPAA compliant. And it's very possible that that employer didn't realize that there is that sort of technology out there. I thought I would just kind of chime in with that. Part of it is just really seeking assistance from telework specialists, work from home specialists. And that's something that, you know, Commute Tampa Bay can help out with. And so many of our partners too. Sarah Hendricks, for instance, at the New North Transportation Alliance can help with that. I know we don't have like a perfect answer with this, and I wish we could open this up so that a lot of our attendees could chime in too, because I'm sure you have some really good ideas. Karen Kress has a question. Where can we find and share studies with our employers and to advocate for continuing to work for a few days a week? I think a lot of that's a great question. And that's something that I think we need to compile and make sure that we have that on hand so that we can get that information out. You know, there's a colleague of mine, Sue, who has really kind of a great solution to this issue that Sarah brought up. And that's just simply convince the boss to just try this. Give it a trial period. If you're requesting a big change in your work schedule, you're requesting to work from home, I think one of the things that you can do is just maybe convince your boss to try it out before moving to a schedule that you're working from home 5 days a week. So I think that's awesome Karen, I hope that I answered your question. But I think really what we need to do is kind of compile a list and make that available to our staff and to all of the TMOs, because I think that's a great resource for us to have. Terry, Keisha, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think.
No, Karen, I have done a lot of research. I have not quite cited any, which I think is a great idea to cite some and add to our website. I have, read up on Stanford. So Stanford has done some studies as well, university. So I will go ahead and go back to my notes to find actually log the actual places that I did research these studies from.
Well, I think that really kind of concludes this presentation, this webinar. Keep in mind that we're going to have this recorded and it'll be posted on YouTube if you want to go back or you want to share this with anybody. We're happy that you attended, and we can continue this conversation too offline, but thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to talking to you in the future about other transportation and commuter service issues. Thank you.